So, first of all, hi, everyone. I'm Andy, Jobbatical's content manager. I want to welcome you all to Jobbatical's the 2025 Workplace webinar. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. As you know, our speakers today will be Karoli Hindriks, Jobbatical CEO, and Patty McCord, HR expert and industry leader. But I will let them introduce themselves in just a minute. I am sure they'll do a much better job at it than I will. I just want to first invite you to leave any questions that you have throughout the webinar on our Q&A. So I will enable the Q&A just now. You will see a notification on the bottom right of your screen. If you click it, it'll take you directly to the Q&A section where you can click Ask a Question. If you happen to lose the section at any time, do not panic. You can find it again on the bottom right corner of your screen. There's an icon with a triangle, a square, and a circle. So if you click there, you'll see the Q&A option again. At the end, or even throughout the webinar, we'll have a little bit of time to go through all of your questions. And yeah, thank you again for being with us. That's all on my side. So I'll give it to Karoli and Patty.
Thanks.
Super. Thank you. So, Patty, we already started a little bit of our conversation, but maybe just a quick introduction from my end as well. And as I know, there are a lot of new people in this webinar today. So I'm Karoli, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Jobbatical. And just in terms of what we do with Jobbatical, my team across the world, to be precise, 43 cities of the world, wakes up every morning to move us towards our mission, which is making moving to a new country as easy as booking a flight. And today we have a very special guest for us, for me, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation. But I will do a little bit. I will try the introduction, Patty, and you can jump in. Let's see how this goes. But first of all, I want to say today's guest, among many other things, is also an author of one of my absolute favorite management books ever written. So powerful. If you haven't read it, I really recommend to read it. It has given me a lot of insights in terms of how to improve building a company, how to lead, and etc. So we'll be talking about that a bit more. But like thinking through of Patty, your journey, then so Patty has had a journey of seeing both large tech companies to small innovative startups, how they are built, how they evolve. And one of the things that you have seen is how companies can become slow, and how, this I love the most, how employees can become whiners. And the reason for that, so basically, is that you believe people actually do have the abilities to come to work, wanting to make an impact, wanting to make their work matter. But we as leaders need to create an environment for them to have a possibility to do so. So you spent 14 years in Netflix experimenting with different new ways of working, and so starting from like abolishing performance reviews, challenging policies, and etc. So a lot of that, what we see today in terms of you helped to build one of the most powerful companies in the world, was starting to lay a ground for a workplace where people can bring all their powers. So did I do like a good job in terms of like?
Yeah. Well, you ended with, and you didn't say it. I'm really proud of you. You didn't say empowerment.
I didn't say empowerment. I've read that book so many times that even when I say I kind of empowerment, no. But one of the things when I was thinking about our conversation, and I'm thinking about this year, so we're now looking at the Christmas tree. It's the year is ending, and this year, and actually the recent years to say so, have been kind of the years of change. There's so much change happening. And throughout your career, you really saw it all. You see good times, bad times, challenging times, and all of that somehow uh, uh, taught you something. So, are there any highlights or lowlights that you have gotten from your journey on how to lead and manage change?
Yeah, I'll give you a kind of a mini elevator pitch so you know how I got here. I started out in tech at very large companies. I started as a recruiter, and that really affects who I am and how I think about work, because it was my job to put the right person in place at the right time. And so I was also really, when I started in tech, I was really fascinated by the work that people do in tech. I love watching people write code. I love being in a meeting where people are brainstorming a marketing program. I love all of those things. And so, but because I started in big companies in HR, I went from, I always say I was classically trained. Right. I knew all the employee handbook. I knew what all the rules were. I thought that, I thought in the beginning, because I was a recruiter, so it was my job to just put people in the right place. As I went further in HR, I thought, well, maybe my job is to protect the company from those evil employees that might sue us. That's it. So we should make lots of rules so that they don't sue us. Wait a minute. Maybe my job is to lay people off. That's it. That's my job. No, wait, my job is to keep secrets so that people don't, then I'll know something they don't know. I'll be on the inside. And I went from a very rules-based early training to, over the years, realizing what a waste of time most of that stuff is. And to your point, realizing that, people, we don't hire children. It's illegal. So we hire adults, and most people as adults know that work is something to be responsible about. And so I learned to really respect the fact that the people that were working with me were not that different than me. And what I really wanted to do was to do a great job. So sort of like mistakes I've made. One of the mistakes was thinking I had to take sides. Probably that's the biggest mistake. Was I on the employee side or was I on management side? Right? You read all these things about, don't trust HR because their job is to protect management. And their job is to be part of the company and make it successful. And there's very specific things that people do that bring expertise to the organization in my field. But what I learned over the mistake I made was feeling like in every situation I had to either be on management side or the employee side and fight for whoever side I was on, instead of realizing that I was a member of the team to move the company forward, to make our customers happy, to grow revenue, to make us profitable, to do all, not any different than anybody else, right? It was as important. Hiring the right people, having them be successful, contributing to the organization is as important as the CFO, is as important as the product. So, those are the things I learned over time.
But one of the things that you mentioned is that taking sides, and this is, I think, super common in companies, is that you have this management and us. So, and which is a really difficult place, that especially if things are changing fast, if you have those two sides, this political kind of movement.
Yeah.
So basically, that's really bad. What do you think are the ways to actually not have that? Like,
I used to tell people when they got promoted, I would say, congratulations, you got promoted. Now you have two things today you didn't have yesterday. One, if you have a business card or a signature line on your email, it has a different word in it. Now it says manager or director or supervisor or vice president. Isn't that great? You have new words. The second thing that you have that you didn't have yesterday is suddenly you become psychic. Because you know how all employees go, well, she should know that, she's my manager. Right. As if, like, as soon as you got that title, then all of a sudden, oh, now I know what everybody wants, and I'm endowed with the ability to make them all motivated. Right. It just, so that, that's why the team metaphor works so well, I think, because you're a member of the team and you may have a different position than somebody else. And hierarchy is built in organizations for efficiency, right? If every decision, literally every decision in an organization is made by consensus, then things happen. It just goes slow. And the thing about a lot of the things that I've done in my career, I haven't done them for, altruistic, esoteric reasons. Mostly I did it because it was inefficient, right? So I started to look at literally everything that we did, particularly administratively in companies, and said, does that move us forward? Does that help us be more effective? Does that help us keep track of things? Is it important data? Or is it just something that we've always done? It's a big waste of time. So, and I learned that, and I'll tell you, I think that my biggest transition from having to take sides, management, employee, came from being deep inside of working with product people. So I used to say I was the product manager for people at Netflix, or I was the CFO, COO, the chief operating officer of the culture. Right, which was about how do you operationalize the things that you need to do, you want to do, or you have to do. And you talked about my book, and people say, oh, you've done all these innovative things. The truth is, I really didn't invent anything. What I did, here's my secret. I stopped doing stuff that wasn't important. So, and I learned this from product people, right? One of the most important ways to innovate is to do something different to achieve the same goal as to do what everybody else does. And in my field, when you do what everybody else does, you call it best practices.
And actually, one of the things also what I have learned, and again, I started as a CEO or like as an entrepreneur when I was 16, so I have had a lot of time to make a lot of mistakes. And I think one of the things that kind of helped to overcome this, or at least lessen significantly the us versus management, is being transparent. And I think this is something that you also kind of what you say. Talk a lot about in your book is like treating people as adults, like that they can handle also the hard information and then make decisions based on that. And I've seen how this actually transforms the mentality. Like I think people feel trusted.
Yeah. And I think there's two really important components to that. One of them is the transparency has to come all of the time. Right. And it's like I said earlier, for some people, it's giving away your power that comes from keeping secrets, right? There's a lot of power in, I know something you don't know. And when you flip that around and say, it's my job to make sure everybody knows as much as they can to be successful, then that's a really big change. And you're right. People can really, really absolutely hear the truth. And the other part is that, if you respect each other as other coworkers, literally everybody who's a member of the team playing a role, then, and you think that they're the best that they can be in whatever role they have, then you learn to listen to them, right? So transparency is not just that you say the truth, but that you hear it. And so that respect, that doesn't happen when you're my subordinate, right? That happens when you're a member of my team that I respect, that I want to do. I want you to be the best you can be because it'll make us both better. And, it's another like wild secret is if the people around you are amazing, you'll be more amazing too. Because
I've noticed as well.
Because it just kind of feeds on itself. So, the mistakes are the stumbling mistakes that we all make are, what do I do with this power? It's interesting for you, having known you all these years, because you kind of started as, you started as an entrepreneur. And so I think that because you did that so young, one of the things I admire about you is like, you didn't know any better.
Absolutely no
That's what makes you one of my favorite people. It's like you didn't come through the ranks in a big organization and realize that you're at the top and that there's this big Christmas tree underneath you and the people on the bottom of the tree always get eaten by the cat, right? I mean, it's that we're all on the it's a dumb metaphor. We're all on it together. And so those are the biggest mistakes I think that people can make over time, is that, and the honesty, the transparency part is not communicating bad news in a nice way so people can hear it. It's just that rhythm of communicating what's happening all the time so that it doesn't become this big deal when you are honest. And it's easier. I mean, here's the deal. Like if I'm going to stab you in the back at work, I got to find a knife. I got to wait till you turn around. I got to stab you in the back. I got to kill you. I mean, if I'm going to stab you, I might as well kill you. So I've got to do it right. Then I've got to get rid of the body. And then, and I've got to plan all that. And all of that takes a lot of time. Right? It's really inefficient. It's a lot more efficient for me to go, that thing you just did makes me crazy. And here's why. And so if you did this thing differently, then I think it would save us a lot of time. And you say, okay.
Exactly. And I'm really glad that you are not actually going to stab me. I already visualized that.
I was, part of all this stuff is I was just never very good at it. It's like, oh God, I just all that time. Politics, work politics is real. It happens every time you have more than two people, sometimes even when you have two. Everybody loves to gossip. Everybody loves to pay attention to who's doing what, who's saying what, who's got the power, who doesn't have the power, all that kind of stuff. And so it's going to happen. It's not like I say you have to get rid of all politics. It's just that it's time wasting.
And a productivity wasting. It's a killer.
It's productivity wasting, and it makes you better. If you just say, and you can be straightforward in a very kind way, right? And the example that I just gave you, the best thing about that example is I didn't say that thing you do makes me crazy, stop doing it. I did say that, but that I didn't stop there. I said, so, and here's why, right? Waste a bunch of time. So, and here's what you could do differently. I got that in a 360 review from one of my people on my team. So when I used to teach performance reviews, I would give examples of me. Right, I'd take them off of mine. And one of them was, hey, Patty, I really love your team. You're really great. You're such a great manager. You're such a great hirer. Every time I come to somebody in HR, they're really knowledgeable and friendly, and they seem to know what they're doing. Yeah. And I say to everybody, I put this up on the screen, right? What do you think? And everybody's like, that's really nice. And I'd say, that's useless. Like, of course they're friendly and know their stuff. That's called, being qualified, right? And furthermore, if that's what you feel, why are you telling me? Why aren't you telling them? And then I show one that says, hey, Patty, I love your staff meetings. I learn a lot. You always bring a different perspective, but you talk a lot and you use up all the air in the room. And I come prepared, and never once have you ever asked me what I thought. And I put that up and I say, what do you think of that? And everybody in the room goes, ooh, career limiting move. I can't believe she said that to you. And I said, no, that is the best feedback.
Exactly.
Right. Because all she said was just shut up sometimes. I can do that. Right. It was just like so helpful. Right. I mean, then in my staff meetings, the last 10 minutes was always like, this one's for you. If you guys don't have any questions, we'll get out 10 minutes early. But otherwise, this is like, what do you guys want to know?
I must say that I actually have one of my best learning curves as a leader came from feedback from my employees. It was 2018, and there was at that time we also did like review, this anonymous,
Yeah.
And one of the questions was that with whom you have hard time working with, and quite a lot of people said Karoli.
Uh-huh.
And that was harsh. And then, that moment, I remember I had like either you kind of say like, oh my God, what are we talking here? I'm the
Right.
boss.
They
And
just don't like me. Yeah, right.
Or I actually did what I took this information, I stood in front of the team, and then I told them that I want to understand why. And I understood why I was micromanaging everything, because I was, caring about everyone and everything, so that was the best feedback that completely shifted my leadership. So I completely here agree with you.
And
But maybe
you're so lucky you got that so early in your career. I mean, I've worked with people who don't hear that feedback until they're vice presidents. Right. And they get, and it's usually in an organization where they get promoted because they're so competent.
But maybe let's quickly. I wanted to, as we now look into the future and we're looking at where we are right now. So one of the things that you were played big role in was creating the Netflix culture tech. And I mean, this is a document that Sherry Sandberg has said is the best thing that ever came out of Silicon Valley. And this was the not only a document, but it was like the reality of how people in Netflix worked. So what do you think now, looking at where we are 2024, with everything that has changed and is changing, and we're heading to the 2025, what do you think you would do differently? Or what would be differently in the culture deck if you would have to create it today? Are there any things that
Yeah, actually, so a couple things. One of them is it took 10 years to write it. Years.
That's crazy.
10 years. So those of you who are out there on the interweb world, go find the original deck. It's a slide press. It's a PowerPoint presentation that Reed's the CEO of Netflix, or was the CEO of Netflix, and I used to use as an onboarding document. And we would get everybody who had joined the company in the last quarter in a room with us and say, here's what you should expect from work. And every chapter is built on the chapter before. So for example, there's a chapter called High Performance, and then there's a chapter called Freedom and Responsibility. And you can't have freedom and responsibility unless you have high performance employees. And so figuring out how to do that took years. The first chapter is a chapter about values, and it's not about like esoteric values. It's about habits and things that we admire in each other. When I was there, we rewrote that chapter 6 times. The Netflix culture document, I think, is on its 6th revision. I was just over there talking to them about the new one. Many, many changes have happened to that particular document. One is that Netflix is a global company now, and so culture means different things to different people around the world. And so they had to really hone in on what are the values that cross borders, what are the things that are really critical to the way the company operates, what are the things that we want everybody to know from the first day that they start. And so moving into the future, I think that, so let me go back and forward for a second. I wrote the book. I was traveling all over the world. That's how I met you. It was really groovy. I was having lots of fun, meeting all these people. Pandemic happens. All of a sudden, everybody's grounded. I'm grounded. I'm not doing keynote speeches anymore. I'm not traveling anymore. And I thought, maybe it's a good signal that my time's up. I should stop doing all this stuff, right? And then I started realizing that every time I had spoken to a group, at the end, people would come to me and say, "Oh, we love what you're saying. It's so logical. We can't though. We can't because our CEO won't let us. We can't because we're in Europe. We can't because, we can't work. We couldn't possibly work from home." And 48 hours later, literally everyone in the world did, right? And the truth was, you could have always done that. And the truth was that when we started working from home, we started measuring people's success by their output, by their deliverables, by what they accomplish. We started running the company based on the profit and loss statement, right? We started looking at data all over the organization because we weren't spending a bunch of time in meetings. Then we started realizing, oh my God, I'm in a meeting where there's 22 people, 22 tiles on my Zoom, but only 2 people are talking. You could see it, right? And then you're like, well, why are 22 people in this meeting? Maybe that's an email, right? Or maybe that's a document on Substack. Maybe it's, and so what happened was people started realizing that some of the things I've been saying were really apropos for the work that we were doing then. And I think that that's profoundly changed work because the changes happen so rapidly. And so now when I look forward into work, I think things are going to be really, really, really different. I think AI is going to change things a lot. I think that's going to streamline a lot of things for us. I think it's going to make a lot of things weird. But the other thing, you and I have talked about this before, the most successful organizations are going to have a muscle for change. Right.
Absolutely.
And that's what the pandemic showed us, that the muscle was always there. Right. We could have always done that. We just never had to. And so what I tell people now about the future is, you know, a lot about what the future is going to look like, a lot like the last 5 years. Crazy. So be prepared for change. And then, you know, I always say, if I had my fantasy organization, I would walk in and go, I know we're all going to the right, but all of a sudden we're going to the left. Everybody goes, yay, change.
Yeah.
Instead of
usually it's not that, but
usually it's not that way because humans aren't like that. But we can. Right.
I
And so
completely agree.
I can't predict anything in the future. I can predict that change will continue to occur. It will occur very rapidly, that the organizations that enjoy it, that get off on it, right, that have the muscle for it, will do better. And the organizations that don't waste a bunch of time with stuff that doesn't matter will move faster than organizations that don't. I know, brilliant, huh?
But it's so funny that actually, let's see. Andy, I think, has a question.
Yes, we have some questions here about this precise topic, around what are the talent acquisition trends that people should be aware of, and look out for in 2025. So I know that this muscle for change is a very important aspect of it. Would you say that that is something that you would also consider when looking for new talent?
Sure. I mean, a couple of things to just admit to yourself. One of them is the myth that you're going to join a firm and you're going to be there for the rest of your life was dead in 1970, but we keep pretending like it is. And so that's one thing, that people are going to move around. So know that. A great way as a leader to wrap your head around that change and that trend is to create an organization that's a great place to be from. And if you look at yourself as a leader and say, I want to create CV-worthy activities, right? I want my team to be doing things that they would be proud of, and they would say in an interview for a new job, oh, you should see what I've been working on. It's really amazing. Right? I worked with a great team. We did great stuff. So that's thing one. The trend is going to continue. People are going to move jobs. People are going to move jobs and move countries, you know, to Jobbatical's mission without ever leaving home. And they're going to be more mobile anyway, right? So, you know, I think you saw this years ago that the workforce is global. And I think so that's something that absolutely will continue. And the other part that I think that is a real success factor is there's so much information available to everybody now. There's no reason that you don't know the context of the organization that you're working at. And I don't mean, you know, in the old days, you got your perspective from your boss, from your peers, and from the people at home that knew about your organization. right? Whatever you read online or what people said about your company, right? And now you get that information from everybody, right? If you say, I work at Jobbatical, and your friend says, I've never heard of that, and they Google Jobbatical, they're going to know a lot about the organization pretty fast. And so that constant exchange and flow of information makes us broader thinkers and makes us able to learn the context better. So back in terms of like staffing and creating what are the right trends in terms of employment, those are that there's no best way to do it. Right. So the most important message I can give you if you're somebody who's hiring or somebody who's looking for a job is that the best way to move forward is to figure out in like 6-month increments what your great team is going to look like in 6 months, work backwards and hire towards that. Right. So if you have an amazing team of people who have been working incredibly hard to do an incredible project and it's over, and the new project is a different project, then it might mean that those people aren't the best people going forward. And they may not be as successful going forward. And maybe they would be contribute better to another company that's doing that kind of work. And so that mentality of I'm creating a great place to be from, I'm creating teams and deliverables that are really resume worthy, then you're going to be more ready for the fact that it's just going to keep moving. And the other thing I'll tell you from my past is, I just mentioned AI. Ooh, right? It's the hot new technology. Oh my God, it's new, it's new, it's new. It's going to change everything. It's going to change everything. Well, technology changes all the time. And so, and over time, we've learned to embrace tons of technology. This thing, it used to be, I used to have people help me get it from under my desk. There's more computing power here. So imagine.
Yeah. And actually, what you just said and the question reminded me something that I have been wondering about. So on one hand, we see like all these tools, AI tools that are helping us to be more efficient, but what I've wondered about, considering how much already AI has changed the nature of jobs, or just how rapidly jobs are changing, has it actually made it easier or harder to hire?
I don't think we know. I mean, I think it's so nascent, right? I mean, I don't.
But maybe let me just expand on that.
Yeah.
So basically, what I mean here is that today, so when you were hiring, let's say, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you were hiring a skill set. Very much skill set was, maybe I'm wrong, but this is kind of but now I think we are hiring a mindset, because the skill set, it can be that I hire someone today and in 3 years or 2 years or maybe even a year later, that job doesn't exist anymore. So which means the person has to be adaptable. So which means that so if you are hiring a skill set, it's kind of easier. People go to school and learn to do something, but mindset is even harder. Now you have to really look for those people with the right mindset. I don't know. So that's what I have wondered about.
I think it's too general, right? I mean, so here's my methodology. So I'm very pragmatic. Here's my methodology. In 6 months, if you've hired an amazing team that does incredible work, that makes customers happy, moves the business forward, what does it look like? And because of my Netflix background, I'm like, make a movie of it, right? So are there more meetings? Are there less meetings? Are there more people working cross-functionally? Are people creating more stuff that they're heads down and working, right? What is there more information being shared? Is there less information? Whatever. And then give me your numerals, right? Is there more revenue? Is the site load faster? Whatever it is that you're measuring this particular team to do in 6 months. Okay. So the time capsule is really important, because as managers, what we tell people is, someday things will be different. And the employees here, one of them hears, oh, yeah, he says that all the time. He probably means like, 2 years from now. And another employee might say, oh, shoot, she means tomorrow afternoon. I better get ready.
Mm.
Right. And so the more you can communicate in time frames, and by the way, business changes so much that it makes me crazy, these guys who are predicting 5-year time frames, as if like we can predict 5 years out. Okay. So, 6 months, Okay. Now we're going to reverse engineer it. Okay. In order for my team to accomplish this in 6 months, right, then what do we need to do that we're not doing now? What needs to change, right? Okay, got that in mind. Now you say, in order for that to happen in 6 months, what kind of skills and experience would it take for somebody to be able to solve that problem, in this time frame, right? Okay, so remember, I'm going to hire a CFO. I need to hire a CFO. I'm probably not going to hire the accounts payable clerk. Not that they can't be a CFO someday. It's just not in 6 months. Right. And now, now I know what kind of skills and experience would take for that person to be able to accomplish that in 6 months. And then, and only then, you look at your team and say, who do you have? Right. And now you say, oh, okay, so now I know who's got the skills and who. So first of all, that's going to give me a great way to talk to my people about how things are going to change, because I've got a vision for what's happening in 6 months. And I'm going to hire for the gap.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm going to hire for that talent set, not skill set.
Interesting. Well, how do you differentiate that?
So let's say one of the issues is you're on a very technical team. Everybody's really competent. They're all great engineers. You're developing software that is incredible, but you're developing it with the mindset that it's cool because we're geeks. Right. Instead of sitting down with marketing or sales or customers to say, is this technology really being effective for who we're building it for? Right. And it may be that the people on your team are particularly talented at writing the software, but aren't particularly talented at explaining what they're doing to people in other teams. Right. Mm-hmm. So you want somebody who has a track record of working really effectively cross-functionally, not someone who gets along with everyone. Right. Not someone who's really nice that people in marketing are going to like. You want somebody who's able to say in marketing, tell me more about what you're saying. Tell me more about what's working. Here's a couple of ideas. Which one do you think would be the best one? And working in partnership with other people. That's a talent that usually happens with a little bit of experience. Right. And it might be 5 years of experience, and it might be 3 years of experience, because that person has always worked well cross-functionally and has been in a team that does that. Right. So instead of writing on the job description, 5 to 7 years of effective cross-functional teamwork. Right. You're able to then turn that into a question in the interview that says, we've developed something really complicated and complex, and it seems to make sense from an engineering perspective. Tell me how you'd explain that to someone in sales. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's not just the ability, and it's not just not the ability to do it technically, but it's the desire to do it well.
Which is a mindset, basically.
Which is the mindset. Yeah.
That's
so,
the mindset,
which means
right?
You want somebody who thinks not only can solve this problem in 6 months, but thinks it's a really great problem to solve.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of times, particularly inside the company, when we have somebody who, like, either the company grows out of them or things change, and you think, oh, I love Karoli. She's just terrific. I really don't want her to go. We'll have her do this thing over here. Well, we'll take this job and we'll divide it in half. She can do half. She can't do the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And then we keep doing that. And then you're failing because you're not doing the whole job. Mm-hmm. Right. And you can't move as fast, because I could have hired the Karoli equivalent who's like, been there, done that, got it. Right.
Mhm.
So that's it's about hiring. And I think this is the key to moving forward. It's not, we're going to get twice as much done. We'll hire twice as many people. Very, very common, especially in startups. Right. I've got, or especially when you get a chunk of money, right? Oh, we got investment. We can hire twice as many people. I remember talking to a CEO of a startup and he's like, yeah, you got to help me. We're going to go from 150 to 300 people this year. I'm like, wow, that's impressive. He's like, yeah, I went, it's already, we're 3 months into the year. We got to get going. We got to get it going. What do we do? I'm like, what's about the 150 number? We're going to get twice as much done. So I'm like, you're going to hire,
twice as much problems, right?
well, twice as many of the same people.
Mhm.
Right. And this, I'll tell you the story. This happened to be a company that developed a physical product. And I looked over in the corner, I'm in San Francisco, right? And the most expensive real estate in the world, right? And there's a group of people that are taping boxes because they're shipping out the product. I'm like, you have people whose job is to tape boxes here, and you're going to hire more of them? Oh yeah, because we're going to ship a lot more stuff. I'm like, nixie, right? There are people whose job it is to tape boxes, and that becomes their career, and they're really, really good at it, right? You don't need this expertise in your team. Right. This is not something you need to be great at doing in this real estate, in this place. And oh, by the way, if you took the salaries of 3 of the box tapers, you could hire another. Right. So it's about that's a very, very common thing. More people will get more done. And the reality we both know is that
it's more problems, but
more
actually,
people can be more confused, right?
Exactly, more people, but actually that reminds me of something so one of them, I think one of the best hiring, but it was actually firing advices that you gave me some years ago when I was struggling making a decision, and you told me this. We were in Santa Cruz walking meeting, and you told me that so Karoli, if that person would walk in the room right now with everything that you know, would you hire that person? And if the answer is no, then there's nothing to think about. And this is something that I tell all my team members the same thing. But one of the things that you have talked a lot about also in your book and over the years is that every person, so in order to build strong teams, you also need to make hard changes, right? And what you have said is that every person, when they will have a firing conversation, it should never be a news for them. Like it's basically.
Yeah,
I haven't figured out how did actually in reality work.
If I could wave a magic wand, first of all, I'd get rid of that word. Right, because there aren't guns involved. There's no blood, right? My stab you in the back metaphor. I mean, and then you have to tell somebody I got fired. It's like they react with shock. Like, did they hit you in the chest? Right? Are you going to be paralyzed? Right? Saying breaking up is hard to do. It's always hard with people. Hopefully. It's people that you care about, that you've worked alongside of for a long time. If you wait to fire somebody because you hate them and you're mad at them, then you've waited too long. So there's a couple things that happen. One of them is sometimes you hire the wrong person. It happens a lot in startups. It happens a lot in new organizations. It happens a lot when things change, where you go, well, I don't really know how to solve this problem, but you seem like a smart person and you seem to care about the problem. So let's give it a go. And you give it a go, and it turns out that I was wrong about the problem. Right. I just didn't know, right, until you get there. And so not only can you not do it, and you're not like, you can't, right? And so in that case, it's nobody's fault. Right. And if you're going to make a hire like that, then you want to say, hey, by the way, I don't really know what this problem is, and you seem to be smart. You seem to care about the problem, and it might work. If it doesn't work, no harm, no foul. Okay, let's just be clear about that, right? Let's give ourselves a period of time to see if you're the right person to do this. Okay. The other thing is that if you hire the wrong person, it's your problem as a manager. It has nothing to do with the employee. Nothing.
I think
They
that's
didn't.
the hardest to admit
They
for
didn't.
any manager.
You made a hiring mistake,
Mhm.
right? And so in that particular case, how you are honest with the person is A, you can be as honest as you can when you hire them. And B, you're going to tell them frequently as they go along, is it working or is it not? Is it working? We used to call it probation, right? And now what it means is that early on when you hire somebody, you want to pay a lot of attention to how it's going. What's the speed in which they're learning? How are they reaching out? What are they doing? Okay, so that's one reason. Second reason is you hire somebody to do something and they do it and then they're done, right? And hopefully that person will know that because you've given them lots and lots and lots of context about where the business is going, who the customer is, how you're making money, how you're not, what your team is doing, what your team's not doing, what your focus is, how it's going to change. And so even though that person might still be surprised, they won't be surprised in that they didn't know where the company was going. Right. So it's
Back to
kind of
transparency. Yeah, kind of.
right. If you have to fire somebody because they're incompetent, again, if you keep somebody around for years that's incompetent, they didn't do anything wrong, right? If you keep going, well, you're close for 5 years, they think they're doing a good job. Right? They aren't delusional. They're just interpreting what you say. And so, it's funny because when people meet me, they say, oh, you're a lot nicer than I thought you were. I thought you were the big bad wolf who does nothing but fire people. And it's funny because the other thing is, I say a lot about we're a team, not a family. And I really mean that. I mean that when you work together with somebody, it's a wonderful experience. And the joy you get from creating something with other people, you can find nowhere else on earth. But it's a different relationship, right? And it doesn't mean that you can't really adore people over time. My best friends are Netflix alumni. My best friends, right? Many of them I fired. and they've gone on to do amazing things, right? And I'm really proud of them, and I'm really excited to know them and the things that they're doing now and the difference they're making in the world. It's great. And so it's never easy, but it shouldn't be painful for you or the person. You want my practical tip for that one? But practical tip, sidebar, practical tip. If you're going to say goodbye to somebody, want to write it all down. It can't be about blame. The first thing you're going to say to them is thank you. Thank you for the work that you've done. We wouldn't be here today without you, because that's true. Right? Okay. And then, all the things that you're going to say, and you know how you have this conversation in your head and you're just, I'm pretty brilliant. This is going to go really well. Call your voicemail, say it, right? Practice having the words come out of your mouth, because what happens in your head and what comes out of your mouth are two different things. Say it to your voicemail, let it sit for a little bit and cure. Listen to it as if you're the person who you're talking to.
I must say, never tried that.
and say it as if that person is going to go tell their grandmother.
Okay, that was a good practical tip.
I lost my job at work, Grandma. What did you do wrong? I didn't. Things changed. I didn't. I got a new manager. He wanted a different team. I did, right? Whatever. So think about the message, and the message has to be grounded in truth, right? Because that message is not the message for the grandmother is going to be same as the message for the other people in the team, who are also paying attention to everybody who comes and goes.
So Andy, I think you have a question for us.
Yes, as we're talking about communication, Yvonne asked, what is your best piece of advice on navigating negative people, and how would you respond with honesty and transparency?
Ooh, I love that one. Okay, so here's trick number 507. You want to get that person alone. you want to say, tell me what your issue is, and you want to let them go. Do the old, let them go. I can't believe my manager's such a dumb shit. They've done this bad thing. They're horrible. Gone on and on. And then she said, and then she did, and then she said, and then she, and the rest of us, oh my God, it was awful. It's awful. She's awful. She's awful. She's awful. And then just listen. Listen until they run out of air. And then say, wow, what did she say when you told her that? And the negative person will go, well, I can't tell her that. And then you say, but you told me. And I can't do anything about it. So what might be a better way to make sure that she knows this thing that she doesn't know, that she can't fix because she doesn't know she's doing it wrong, unless you tell her. Right? And so the negative people usually make a lot of noise because it gets them a lot of attention. So one way to diffuse the negative person is just not give them any airtime. The second way is to help them figure out how to really communicate, right? And the third way is to just listen to them. And then really listen to them, because sometimes the negative person just doesn't want to be there anymore. And no one's ever said to them when they go off on a harangue like that is to say, wow, you sound miserable. Why are you still working here? I'm sure you'd be so much happier somewhere else. And oh, by the way, I've had that conversation with people I loved and I didn't want to go because they were passionate about something we weren't going to do. You know, I remember Reed, our CEO coming in saying, did you just talk John into leaving and going to Facebook? I'm like, yeah, I did. It's like, why? And I said, because he really, really is interested in what they're doing. And he thinks our number one priority should be integrating with Facebook. And as you and I both know, we're not going to do that. Right. And so he keeps using up all this air in every meeting that he's at going, I don't understand why we're not integrating with Facebook. And finally I sit down with him and going, we're not going to do that. Right. So like for the 57th time, we're not going to do that. So it's not because you haven't convinced us. It's a very important thing. Will we do it someday? Yeah, maybe. Are we going to do it right now, next year? No. So dude, go work at Facebook. You're a brilliant person. Right. And by the way, I hired you to run our search team. And if what you want to do is do that instead of this, that's cool. Right. Help me figure out how we're going to transition you. How is the team? Is there somebody on the team that's ready to take you? Let's talk about how the team's going to function when you're gone. And so that diffuses all that noise. It's like, okay, well, I get it.
And John left?
Yeah, I went to Facebook. Yeah. And and he's was really, really successful. And oh, by the way, he changed jobs every probably 3 years because he was the kind of guy who always wanted the new thing. Right. He didn't like projects that lasted longer than about 6 months. And he was amazing at them. Right. It's just kind of his MO. Right. It's like he always wanted to work on and so that's fine. I mean, applying, and he also was an inventor, not a maintainer. Right. 2 different skill sets, 2 different mindsets. Right. He always wanted to tweak it and make it new. And what had happened in his particular team was we had moved from the creation part to now the creative part is making it global and efficient.
Building a big, ugly corporation.
Yeah, scaling. Right. So now the problem was scale, not invention. And it's not that you don't want smart people in both those jobs. It's just different people.
But maybe let's talk about or Andy, let's take your question because otherwise we run out of time. Let's take the question.
Yeah, I was just about to say that we're a few minutes from the end of our time, but I think that we have a question here that is very, very nice to close. So, what advice would you give to a young person or student who is just starting to navigate the corporate world? So now in 2025, in the setting of big change, with AI challenging job roles, and where hiring for mindset beats hiring for skill sets.
Well, you want to do tons of research, first of all, right? You want to find out the places where you think you'd like to work and know a little bit about what you think you can accomplish and what you can contribute to an organization. And as you're interviewing, you want to make sure that that's a good fit, right? The other thing is you want to go into any new job, particularly early in your career, and know that you're going to learn something. And it might be what you don't want to do. I mean, I remember that early. I remember early in my career, like thinking, I just hate this place and I don't want to work here anymore. And in my mind, I'd write my CV and go, oh wait, I'm a professional. I could get another job. What do you know, right? And so then you start to navigate about, okay, what is making me crazy, right? What is it that I'm really good at? And here's how you know early in your career, here's how you can start to get a beat on it, right? When you, at the end of the day, and you get on the subway or you get in your car, or however it is you get, or you go in the other room because you're working from home and you go, damn, I'm good. Today was a great day. I did it, right? What was that thing? Right? What was that thing? That's probably what you're passionate about and what you're really good at. And when, particularly early in your career, things make you crazy, then step back and say, what's making me crazy? I'm blaming it on this person, Karoli, right? She's making me crazy because she's micromanaging me. So yeah, do I plan to do anything about it? Right? Do I feel like I have enough power to say, I'm okay. Why don't you just come back on Friday and let's see how well I did. Give me a couple of days to just do it on my own. I think I can do it. Or B, is it that I'm not paying enough attention to detail because I really don't like it? Right. So you want to take all of those positive and negative things as you go along and start to learn from them. So the first jobs in your career are all the jobs in your career are learning jobs, but it's particularly important at the beginning. The other thing at the beginning is to pay attention to what great leadership looks like. Just start to pay attention to who you think is doing it right, because someday you could be in that position too. And by the way, you'll learn as much from the people that do it wrong.
And I would actually even kind of adding to what you said, one of the things that I like to think about jobs is jobs are like journeys today. So nobody, as you said, nobody's journeying for like 50 years. You kind of take a journey. So I like to ask in interviews, what is that you want to learn in your next journey? And I think if you would start up right now as early in your career, I think that's a question you should ask as well. What is that I want to learn in that journey? Like what is that? And then kind of trying to identify, does this company, does this like help you to kind of grow with it? And I think one of the things that definitely is especially in the current environment is growth mindset. So we were talking about hiring mindset, is to really embrace your growth mindset, because that is what is going to help you in your to get those best journeys, I think.
Yeah. Well, and back to and look for people who have it. Right. I mean, one of the best way, it's one of the downsides of working remotely all the time is you don't always get to see great leaders in action. But when you do, pay attention. Right. Pay attention to who communicates well and how they do it. Pay attention to who you admire and why. right?
Mhm.
Because and they don't have to be mentors, right? You don't have to say, will you be my mentor? And then we have a mentoring agreement. You want to pay attention to people that you and me. It's a great way to close, right? I've learned a ton from you as a person who has just spent your whole life inventing, literally inventing whole companies. And I mean, I've always loved our relationship because I get to share some of my wisdom with you and
And
help you.
I have to tell that story, but like in a, I don't know, Andy, will you give us one more minute? Because I think this is
Minute
there's
granted.
a kind of this, the stories that Patty and I met in 2018 at a conference where we were both speaking, but the important story starts when just before I was about to do the biggest change that so basically we pivoted the whole business. I contacted Patty and asked her advice. So she was helping me to think through huge change, and I must say you taught me a lot about managing a change, communicating a change, how to actually make a difficult change into something that where people take out their powers and just run with you to this new direction that is so clear. And so I just wanted to maybe from my end thank you for that. So I taught you something, but you definitely taught me a lot.
It
So
was
and we
great
are
fun.
here thanks to that. So thank you for that.
Yay! And we keep doing it.
We keep on
Yep.
doing it. So I actually have tons of questions that we didn't manage to ask, but thank you so much, Patty, for your time, for taking us next to your morning coffee because it's early there. And thank you everyone who joined. Have a marvelous continuing Thursday wherever you are on our planet. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.